The world has witnessed the forced displacement of millions of people across the globe in what has become known as the Global Refugee Crisis. And although we frequently use the terms migrant and refugee seemingly interchangeably, these terms are not synonymous. Migrants leave their home typically in search of economic opportunities, while refugees are forced to flee their homes due to natural disaster, persecution, and warfare. During the last 6 months, the refugees have flooded Europe in an attempt to find a safe place to call home because their homes have been destroyed and their countries have been devastated. Among other factors, we have the Syrian civil war, the Somali civil war, the Taliban in Afghanistan and Pakistan, continued warfare in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, forced indefinite military conscription in Eritrea, the spillover of Boko Haram in Western Africa. These factors have all contributed to the millions passing through Europe. I'm here today to share with you just a few of my experiences from 3 months abroad, primarily in the Tabanovce Refugee Camp and in the Moria Detention Center. So to say that August of 2015 was a defining or pivotal moment in my life would be a gross understatement. I became the recipient of a Fulbright Fellowship to live in and teach 4th grade English right outside of Skopje in the Republic of Macedonia. And after a short weekend vacation to the beach in Greece, my circumstances changed drastically. On our way back, as we neared the border, we were driving on a major highway and we saw tents established all along the side. And as we were waved across, we noticed a building packed with people who looked like they could have been refugees. This was confirmed for us as we were waved across without even a glance at our passport. And as we continued on the highway into Macedonia, we drove behind a very slowly moving van, which for anyone familiar with the Balkans is very unusual, considering reality is not the same there. And as we attempted to pass this van, the lights from our car were shining into the back. And once again, we saw that this van, much like the building that we had just passed, was filled with refugees, one of whom was a woman wearing a purple hijab with yellow flowers. I don't know her name, I don't know her country of origin, and I don't know her story. But I do know that the image of her was burned into my mind for 2 days and 2 nights until I decided I needed to do something to get involved. And so up to that point, I was recognized as the quirky English teacher in Belimbegovo, who went to the local restaurant every day and got a Pepsi and a salad for lunch. But this day was different. Due to poor reception, I came in and out of the restaurant, back and forth, making one phone call after another. And 4 phone calls later, I finally had the information necessary in order to go to the Tabanovce Refugee Camp. And so once I arrived, I immediately began getting involved with the distribution, with fundraising there and through the internet, with translating and with coordinating translation. These were all routine tasks. But soon as the trains began to arrive later and later and later, I started guiding the groups down to the Serbian border. It was dark, it was cold, and we used my flashlight in order to guide us through the field. And the only way that you knew you were at the border was by a 3-foot concrete post. Apart from that, there was no way to know. You were in the middle of an old field, an old farm field. And so I would typically give directions in English or German, as many of the Afghans had worked in Germany or Austria once upon a time. But occasionally, I would embarrass myself profoundly in extremely rudimentary Arabic, Farsi, or Turkish, leading to much laughter among all of us at my expense. Though one of my warmest memories during my time in Macedonia took place at about 1 o'clock in the morning. We had received news that within a couple hours we would have another train arriving with approximately 800 more refugees, and we had no bread left. We had water, we had fruit, we had milk for the babies, we had pashteta, which is chicken pate, but we had no bread. And so one of my close colleagues and I got in the car, and we immediately drove to Kumanovo, a nearby Albanian city, and we converted what used to be our home during the night into a pantry. We went to 4 bakeries and bought them out, literally. Every single halal bread product that was available was purchased by us. And so our car pantry consisted of loaves of bread, rolls, croissants, and gevrek. And when we returned to the camp, we immediately established an assembly line, prepared all of the package, and ensured that all 800 of those individuals coming off of the train were fed, after which point they went to the border. Now, this didn't last long, because after approximately 1 month of my involvement, the Department of State decided to rescind my Fulbright Fellowship due to my involvement. And so it was at this point that I returned to the United States for a couple weeks, raising money, raising support, so that I could continue to work with the refugees. And shortly thereafter, I found myself on another a plane, this time headed to Lesvos Island, Greece. And when I got to Lesvos Island, Greece, I was working at the Moria Detention Center. And this camp was much different than the previous. So in Macedonia, we had approximately 5,000 to 8,000 new people passing through every day, grabbing what they need and going. In Greece, it was a registration camp, and everyone was forced to remain for 3 or 4 days, sleeping outside on the dirt if it were a good day, and in the mud if it were bad, simply to get their papers to continue their journey through the Balkans. And so while here, I engaged in many of the same activities that I did in Macedonia: distribution, fundraising, translation, and coordinating translation for medical personnel. But additionally, I spent a great deal of time walking around the outside of the camp to start fires for these people who were sleeping outside, who otherwise would have froze. And so in doing so, I heard the horrific, tragic stories of people fleeing the violence in places like Afghanistan, which was recently deemed safe enough for people to be deported back to. And while I would walk around and start these fires, taking boxes with me to continue or begin new ones, my pockets were always filled with baby socks, baby shoes, and gloves, because there are a surprising number of babies without anything in 30 to 35 degree weather. Additionally, my shoulders were never bare, with piles of blankets or sleeping bags so that I could distribute these as well, so that people who otherwise would have had to sleep in the dirt or the mud had something else to make it slightly better. Now, these soon, too, became routine tasks, as an Egyptian man in Mytilene, the capital of the island, invited a few of us to participate in the burials of victims lost at sea. And although this experience, the janazah, the funeral, was extremely heartbreaking and humbling, the worst part was immediately before each funeral, when we went to the hospital and there was a freezer outside with 25 or more linen-covered bodies who needed a place to be buried, some of whom remained there for a month due to a lack of land. And so even though I am the one standing in front of you today sharing just a few of my brief experiences, there are many, many other people involved. Some of my closest colleagues are not here to tell their stories, and I want to share a little bit about them. So the names who immediately come to mind would be Merciha Smailovic, the Bosniak woman responsible for overturning the law in June of 2015 and allowing the refugees to pass through the Balkans. Driton Malici, an Arabic-speaking Albanian man who simultaneously defended his dissertation and dedicated any free time to working with the refugees. Mara Bojkovska, the Macedonian former military logistics woman who had recently been laid off and made her new life every single moment around the refugees, living at the camp, working at the camp, breathing the camp. Cyril Kellogg's Roman, the Swiss man whose pure ingenuity and creativity led to solutions like going to supermarkets and taking unsold food that we could use for distribution. Paulina Jedinak, the Polish neuroscientist who first met me in the Republic of Macedonia and then made a second trip to Idomeni at the Greek-Macedonian border to work with the refugees. Crystalline Steed Brown, the American woman who initially traveled to Lesvos Island for 2 days and remained for 3 months. And finally, Islam and Huda al-Sudani, the Iraqi-British sister duo, who traveled through the Balkans providing assistance and translation wherever necessary. These are just a select few of the many faces of the humanitarian effort. And so as a final thought, I want to consider one of the words in the title of this talk, and that word is Yalla. Yalla is a word that we heard in almost every sentence. This is an Arabic word that means hurry or let's go. And so I want to remind you, time is short, the need is great, and we all have a moral compass to follow. So whether you work with the refugees or not, we will all, inshallah, never experience the same things that they did. And so if you see people in need, you have a decision to make. You can stand aside and watch it as it happens, or you can potentially forfeit other opportunities in an effort to help alleviate some of their concerns. Shukran, tashakur, thank you.